Hi, I'm David Lowery. I am at the Kim's Video Collection at the Alamo Drafthouse, Lower Manhattan. My first video store experience was in a grocery store in Milwaukee, Wisconsin. And there was like a Kohl's grocery store that had a little video section, which was probably the size of like the corner of this space. Quickly, just found a love for like 80s video horror box art. Just was like obsessively looking at those. Was cataloging all of these titles in my head based on the artwork. Shocker was one this was like Wes Craven, right? Did this ever come out theatrically? It probably did, and I was just too young for it. But it was like one of the mid-90s horror movies that we rented for sure. There was a store called Broyles Video that was just down the street from my house, which was the first video store that I think kind of fit the mold of like the classic mom and pop VHS store, where they had the beaded curtain with the adult section, they had a weird foreign film section, they had a wider selection of all those horror titles that I was kind of obsessed with. I think that was probably the first time that I started to expand my idea of what movies were beyond the, rather vanilla stuff that my parents let me see. All of my education as a filmmaker really came from Roger Ebert's movie Home Companion. So I remember his review of all the Death Wish movies, which I've still never seen any of them. They always seemed so serious and so deadly, and I've seen clips now and I'm like, these look not at all like I imagined them from his reviews. But we also had Video Update, which was a weird sort of like independent chain. It had the best foreign film section of any video store in Dallas. Someone there was up to date on foreign cinema. Sangre was probably the very first title that I rented at Video Update. This was again another movie that was well written up in Roger Ebert's movie Home Companion, and I read his interview with Joe Dorowski over and over again. I read his review of the film. I had a very clear image of the movie in my head. And finally, I'd found a video store that had it. I watched it in the party room at the movie theater I worked at, which I would do late at night. I'd just rent videos and go watch them while we were waiting for the theater to close. And it was every bit as great as I could have imagined. Tusk and Rainbow Thief I wasn't able to see until this one wasn't even on that first box set, was it? I think Tusk was. This one was not. I still have not seen this one. I feel like the fact that I don't know about this one and haven't seen it is due to the fact that like Roger Ebert must not have liked it. And these labels like New Yorker Video were sort of like, in some ways like the A24 at the time, where you like knew that like you could rent a video from a company like this and it would be, even if you didn't know what it was, it would be worth your time. Once I was a little bit older and had my driver's license and was used to driving to the city, there was a store called Premiere Video, which was Dallas's equivalent of Kim's. That was like the place that I discovered Asian cinema, like going there and watching Wong Kar-wai movies before they were released in the US, Apichatpong Veerasethukkal, filmmakers that had a huge impression on me. I knew I could find their work at that store. Happy Together was definitely one that, thanks to Tarantino's label releasing Chungking Express, that introduced me to Wong Kar-wai, and then I tried to track down as many of his as I could. There's all of these animation titles, like this one popped out, which I have seen.
A wonderful, wonderful film.
Not really, Rex. No. I mean, it starts well enough, but the consistently dark substrate is convulsing through a sea of allegorical detail.
My early attempts at filmmaking were centered around claymation and stop motion because it was something that I could do. I have not seen most of these. This is incredible. Like, we didn't have MTV, but I always heard about liquid television. I always heard about Eon Flux. I actually did see this at some point, much later, and it's insane. Don't know what this is? Definitely remember this title. What a cast. Mel Ferrer, John Huston, Glenn Ford, Shelley Winters.
Her name is Katie Collins, and she'll be 8 years old.
Hellborn. Thanks to the Tim Burton film, I went through a major Ed Wood phase. I managed to track down a number of his movies, but this one I have not seen. I remember when Orgy of the Dead came out. They actually released it on VHS when I was in high school. By the time I was 16, I was very excited to see a movie called Orgy of the Dead. It didn't quite live up to my expectations, but I suppose it is exactly what I should have expected from an Ed Wood film. The Fantastic Four, which was written up in Wizard magazine when I was probably 11 or 12. It wasn't a cover story, but like a full behind-the-scenes expose on the production of it, and it talked about, you know, when it was going to get released, and of course it never was. I became aware that it was circulating on VHS sometime in high school. I can't remember if I got it off eBay, but I did see it, and it's pretty cool. I would say it's probably as good or better than all of the Fantastic Four movies that have come out so far.
It's clobbering time.
Ben, no! I love you.
If it was a Saturday night with a bunch of friends, Nudist Colony of the Dead would probably be something we'd pick up just because of the title and this cover. This looks like it's probably not as good as the cover, but it's great. Another interesting thing, like looking at all of these, is how many of these titles have been reused. Like obviously Inside Man is a Spike Lee movie, but also it is a Dennis Hopper movie. You know, you don't ever get accidental viewings anymore where you actually, you know, you check out the wrong thing or you pick up the wrong thing or the wrong thing gets put in the box. This is one that I've never seen, that I've always been really interested in. I had like I don't know, I never liked H. Rider Haggard's books. Like I tried reading King Solomon's Mines because of the Richard Chamberlain movie with Sharon Stone. And so then I found out about She, and it sounded amazing and still sounds kind of incredible. And I remember at one point just being like, is this a writer whose work should be remade now? And looking it up and realizing, no, it should definitely not be.
What is this place, a funny farm?
Just to have the slight satisfaction of just going to a shelf and just pulling a title out like this. Just like ducking it out, getting a look at the cover, deciding whether it's worth pulling out. The muscle memory of that is something that is an indelible part of my life. If there was any store to preserve that experience in 2024, it would be this one.